In this video, we are going to talk about a new horror game called Dollmare, a game about a guy who starts working at a factory that produces dolls for children, but soon discovers that these dolls are far from ordinary. The game begins with you struggling financially as your bills and rent keep piling up, so you have no choice but to accept a job at an old factory that makes children's dolls. Many people warned you about the factory's terrible reputation, but because of your debts, you have no choice but to take the job. When you arrive at the factory, you are greeted by someone who turns out to be the manager of Sweet Chicks, the blood factory. He tells you to go to the locker room and put on your work clothes. There you find a note inside the locker of the previous employee, whose name is Kay. The note only contains his name, but Kay will become very important later. After that, you head toward the workshop where you will be working, and on the way you notice a room at the end of the hallway blocked with wooden boards. You ignore it and keep going until you reach the workshop where the manager explains your job. Your task is to check the quality of the dolls while the good ones go onto the conveyor. Belt on your right, and the broken or defective ones are thrown into the trash chute behind you. You start working by placing the good dolls on the conveyor belt and throwing the defective ones into the trash chute. At first, everything seems normal, but the manager suddenly returns and warns you not to leave any door open. His serious warning makes it clear that there is a mysterious reason behind this rule. You return to work, but then one of the dolls coming from the production line looks strange and badly damaged, confirming that something unusual is happening inside the factory. You ignore it and throw the doll into the trash chute while trying to ignore the creepy noises around you, including strange laughter with no clear source. Then something even stranger happens as a strange doll suddenly appears behind you after you already threw it into the trash chute. While you are finishing your work, the power suddenly goes out, and the manager asks you to go to the generator room and restart it. On your way there, you see the strange doll again and find the area covered in blood, while strange noises come from all around you. But as soon as you restart the generator, the power returns and everything goes back to normal. The manager then tells you that your work is finished for the day and sends you home to rest. Even after your first day, you know something is wrong with the factory, but you convince yourself that tomorrow will be better. The next day, you return to the factory and stop by the locker room before going to the workshop. There you find another note from Kay, who wonders why he was hired because he feels that his job is pointless. He believes the manager already knows about every mistake in production, so he cannot understand why they need him. But there is another reason why he was hired for this place. You leave the note behind and go to work. Before you begin, the manager gives you a new task. He tells you that the dome is currently talking and your job is to check its quality and make sure its voice sounds normal, while also making sure it does not say anything strange or anything it was not supposed to say. The strange part is that the dome is supposed to be programmed to say specific things, so how can it say things that were never programmed into it, unless it was never programmed at all and can speak on its own? While you are working, the machine that releases the dome suddenly breaks down, so the manager asks you to go to the main production line and fix it. You head to the worst part of the factory, the blood production line, where you find a batch of damaged blood clogging the machine and causing the breakdown. You remove all the damaged blood and the machine starts working again, allowing you to finish your shift and go home. On the third day, you return to the factory, but the manager is not there. Instead, he leaves a note with your new instructions and you discover that your new task is to fix the damaged blood because some parts are missing. However, something else has started to bother you because every day you spend at the factory, the dolls become stranger. There is also one doll that suddenly appears and disappears, and it even seems to be alive. On top of everything else happening inside the factory, you are asked to send a package containing a doll with very specific and unusual features. When you find it and try to send it, you suddenly become trapped inside the room and cannot get out. Then you receive another message from Kay and realize that something much bigger is happening inside the factory. You search for a way out and eventually discover that the exit is through an elevator used for packages. When you leave the elevator, you find yourself in a strange place filled with packages that looks like a giant maze. After many attempts and by following the instructions written on a yellow piece of paper you finally find the exit and return to finish your work. While working, you notice that one of the dolls is missing an eye, so you take it to the doll repair room to replace it. But something strange happens as soon as you put the new eye into the doll. It starts moving in a strange way and seems to be in pain. It no longer looks like a simple plastic toy and instead seems to be alive. After that, you continue your day and eventually return home, but by now you have become much more afraid of the factory, especially after seeing the room filled with root boxes. You cannot understand why all those packages are sitting there instead of being delivered to the people who supposedly ordered them, until you discover that the entire root package system is a trick, because nobody is actually ordering those packages. You keep saying that you do not want to return to the factory, but you feel that something is wrong, and that the people there are hiding the truth from you. Somehow that feeling keeps forcing you to return every day. Then the fourth day arrives, and once again you return to the factory where the dolls have become even stranger. But the strangest doll of all is one that can talk like a human. The doll tells you that he is actually Kay, the former employee who worked at the factory before you. You take Kay somewhere far away from the manager so you can talk privately, and Kay begins explaining everything. He says that before coming to the factory, he was just a normal guy looking for a job, but as the days passed, he started noticing strange things happening there. By the time he discovered the truth, it was already too late. According to Kay, the manager is responsible for everything. What happened to Kay is why he warned you that the same thing could happen to you if you do not stop the manager. But before Kay can explain what you need to do, the manager's voice interrupts and orders you to return to work immediately. On the way back, Kay tells you that it is already too late to escape, because even if you decide never to return to the factory, you cannot do it anymore. The time has passed and the factory has taken control of you, so no matter how hard you try, you will not be able to avoid coming back. In short, if you try to stop yourself from returning, you will fail. You continue working until the end of the day, then leave the factory and return the next day. The fifth day begins and things are even stranger than before. The creatures have become much more disturbing, with some of them shaking and begging you not to throw them into the trash chute because they want to live. The noises inside the factory also become louder and more intense, and you find another note from Kay. In it, he explains that every day he feels like he is changing, and with each passing day he feels more and more like the creatures inside the factory. Finally, your fifth day comes to an end and you try to convince yourself not to return, but something keeps pulling you back to the factory, as if the factory itself is waiting for you. And no matter how hard you try, you simply cannot stop yourself from going back. You return to the factory again, and the very next day is supposed to be your final day, but this time everything is different because the entire place has changed. Dollmare is pulling you inside the opening, and at that moment you find yourself in the area where the dolls in bad condition are disposed of. You start trying to understand why you were brought there while also searching for a way out without dying. As you move through the area, you eventually reach a place that looks like a prison or a cell where you find Kay locked up. Kay apologizes for luring you there and explains that the boss is controlling him. So everything he did was under the boss' orders. In other words, the boss had been controlling Kay from the beginning and used him to lure you into the Doom prison. You continue moving until you reach what looks like a prison for the dolls. But something is very strange about this place because all the blood inside it is alive and keeps moving around as if it is trying to escape. This means that the blood trapped there is actually made from people who were turned into blood, just like what happened to employee Kay. You find a way forward, hoping it will lead to an exit, but instead you enter another room, and as soon as you do, the door behind you closes, leaving it as the only way out. When you go through the door, you do not escape, and instead find yourself inside a cell, which is the same cell where the doll was locked up. Then the boss appears and thanks you for your help, and that is when you realize the truth. You are back at the factory, but you are no longer an employee because you have become one of the blood creatures created by the Sweet Company. This is what many people consider the first ending, or the bad ending. But there is also a second ending where you manage to enter the room that was boarded up with wooden planks, and from there you gain access to the manager's office. Inside, you discover that the manager is controlling Kay, and is the one allowing Kay to lure you into the Doom prison because his plan is to turn you into a doll, just like he did with many others before you. However, there is a way to stop him because inside the manager's office there is a doll that looks like Kay, and the manager uses it to control him. If you destroy the doll on the manager's desk, Kay will finally be free. After freeing Kay, you reach the room at the end, where Kay is waiting for you, and the two of you reunite. There is also another possible outcome that some players wanted to see, where the gas is redirected. Instead of sending the gas up the toilet where you were trapped, it would come out where the manager was. And if that happened, the manager would turn into one of the blood creatures just like he did to many other people.